Yo, what's up guys, I'm Charis and welcome to a new video. If you're a new or returning player that is trying to get into PvM for the first time, you have come to the right place. Because today we're going to be looking at the top 5 bosses for beginners to try out. I'm ranking these bosses in terms of profitability, how much you can learn at them, and in general how much they're going to help you progress your account and your PvM skill. Later on I'm going to be making videos on the top 5 bosses for intermediate and high level players. And the point is you can use these videos as a roadmap so that you can start at low level PvM and end up at the highest tier of PvM. So watch this video through, and if you do enjoy it, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can watch the other two. Without further ado, let's get into the video. At number 5, we have the Barrows brothers. Barrows is located southeast of Canifis, and it consists of killing 6 brothers while looking for a tunnel. Each brother is located in their respective tombs, and one of them will take you to a hidden tunnel and it'll switch every run. Once inside the tunnel, you need to find your way into the center of the room where you can loot the chest and get your reward. Let's talk about the pros for Barrows. The first one and the most important one here is that it is extremely low level. You can start doing Barrows as low as level 50 magic with a low level weapon and gear. Since you can use Barrows amulets, which you can buy at the GE to skip the brothers that you don't want to kill, you don't have to worry about killing Aram or Kril, which are the magic and the ranged brother respectively. All of the rest are melee. And just a quick tip here that most people don't seem to know, you can actually use a Barrows amulet on the chest right at the end so that the brother there doesn't spawn. They're also really good money for low level people if you manage to get an amulet of the Forsaken, which currently sells for about 30 mil. But even if you don't, there are still a few drops in the drop table that can sell for up to 3 to 5 mil each. If you're completely new to Runescape 3's combat system, either from coming from old school or never bothering with combat at all, you can come here to use your abilities and see what each of them do. They're also not immune to your effects, so you can stun them with your abilities and even bring poison to kill them quicker. Finally, for the last pro, they have really low HP, so you won't get punished for not having abilities like Sunshine. Now let's take a look at some of the cons. The fact that they have low HP can also play against you because you can't really build an ability rotation and learn that. This doesn't really matter though, because we do have a couple more bosses in here that will help you with that. Barrows is also really click intensive since you have to be running from tomb to tomb and then getting to the middle room in the tunnel. There's also not much to learn here other than what your abilities do. Finally, the really high profits do revolve around RNG, so you could be stuck here quite a bit before you get an amulet of the Forsaken. Overall, whether you're trying to get the hang of the combat system or just trying to make some money for your gear upgrades, I definitely recommend you do a bit of Barrows. At number 4, we have both Kril and kreearra from God Wars 1. These bosses are the generals for Zamorak and Armadillo respectively, and you can find them alongside General Grador and Commander Ziliana. Even though they're all about the same level, I think these guys are a lot more worth it than the other two. All of them require about the same level, gear, and skill. They all have a little bit more HP, so they'll help you learn and understand ability rotations. They also have relatively common drops, which will keep you motivated when you're killing them. They're not crazy expensive, but they're still worth quite a bit, and some high level players still kill them because of this. They're both really good combat XP, so you can train your stats while still getting some drops. While killing kreearra specifically, you have a chance of unlocking the abilities Devotion, Sacrifice, and Transfigure, which are really useful later on. Devotion is the most important of them all. You won't get these abilities as drops though. Instead, you'll get a chat message saying you unlocked it and it'll be permanently unlocked in your account. Finishing up the pros here, they also drop the WARPRIEST armor, which is tier 75 hybrid armor, and it's pretty much free if you get it as a drop. Even if it's not the best armor in the game, it's still a tier 75 armor for every single style. Moving on to the con here's, and there are very few. Once you get those ability rotations down, there's really not much you can do here. There are no mechanics and there is not much else to learn. They also require kill count in order to go and kill them, so every time you go into the room you have to kill 40 of the followers outside, which can be really time consuming and really annoying to do. You can skip this kill count by using a totem of intimidation, and I'll just let you look that up in the wiki because it's not really friendly for low level players. Moving on to number 3, we have the Dagannoth Kings. The Dagannoth Kings are 3 giant Dagannoths that can be found in Waterbirth Island. They each attack with a different style and have to be killed using their weakness. There's Dagannoth Rex, which attacks with melee and is weak to mage, Dagannoth Supreme, which attacks with range and is weak to melee, and finally Dagannoth Prime, which attacks with magic and is weak to ranged. Now there's a few reasons why you might want to kill these. The first one, and the most important one, is that it'll introduce you to switching gear. Since you have to kill each one with a different style, and since you're killing all 3 at the same time, you have to at least switch your weapons after every kill. Now, if you plan into going into high tier PvM, you are going to have to eventually start doing a lot of switches. Given that this switching is totally different since you aren't actually switching mid-kill, it'll still give you a taste of what it's like to be switching weapons and gear in the middle of a fight. They each drop 1 ring along with the Dragon Hatchet, except for Dagannoth Rex, which actually drops 2 rings. Now with the release of the new bosses, the Rex Matrix, the Dagannoth King rings have actually gone up quite a bit. And at the time of making this video, the Berserker ring is over 10 mil. Given the drop rate is not very high and the fact that you're killing 3 at the same time makes this a pretty good money making method. And Dagannoth Rex, the one with the most expensive drop, can be AFK'd and even SAFESPOTTED, making these available to even lower level players. I do have a guide on how to do this on my channel, so if you want to watch that, you can click on the top right of your screen right now. Now the downside to the Dagannoth Kings is that you need gear for every single style, since you are going to be using melee, ranged and magic to kill these. Unless you're only killing Dagannoth Rex, in which case you only need magic gear. You can also get overwhelmed pretty quickly if you are killing all 3. If one of them spawns and you're not quite done killing the last one, the damage can stack up pretty quickly. Even if you're not sure you're ready to kill these, I do recommend you at least go and try killing Dagannoth Rex and make yourself some money out of those Berserker rings. Coming up to number 2, we have the Queen Black Dragon. QBD is by far one of the most fun bosses to start learning when you're getting into PvM. If you are gonna give it a shot, I do recommend you complete the quest Song from the Depths, since it's gonna reduce the amount of damage you take during the fight. QBD is the first boss fight you're gonna get to that has a ton of mechanics. During the fight, you're going to learn about phasing, since QBD has 4 different phases. You're going to learn movement and placement, since a lot of our mechanics require you to move around or stand in specific spots. You're going to learn to upkeep your potions, which is going to be important when you get to overloads, since you're going to need to have an anti-fire or super anti-fire. And she's consistent money, so you don't have to rely on getting expensive drops in order to be making a good amount of money here. The only downside to QBD is that the profit isn't insanely good. There's no huge drops here, so it lacks a little bit of a wow factor unless you get that pet. In my opinion, this is the closest to a mid or high level fight that you can find in any beginner boss in the game. Before we get into number 1, I do have one honorable mention, and that is Duo Nex. I didn't want to include this in the actual top 5 because Nex is not really considered a beginner boss. But if you have done every other boss up to this point and you have relatively good gear and stats, you can definitely carry your own weight in a Nex duo. Nex is a really mechanic heavy boss, which will teach you how to deal with them. It also has 5 phases, which again will teach you a lot about phasing. It will also be your introduction to team bosses where working as a team actually matters. There is very light prayer flicking, since you have to switch to protect range in phase 2 instead of the protect magic that you use for the rest of the kill. There's also a DPS check during the blood phase where you're gonna have to be on top of your ability rotation to be able to deal enough damage to phase her. If you are struggling with DPS, I do recommend you go watch my video on items and unlocks for PvM for beginners. I'll have a link to it on the top right of your screen right now. And finally, she has fairly common drops going anywhere from 5 mil to 152 mil if you do get that Torva plate buddy. In a duo, that's going to be a 76 mil split, which is just insane for a beginner. The cons for Nex is that you do require a fairly mid-level gear setup for ranged. This is because Nex can use protect from range or protect from magic throughout the kill. And if you make an instance, you can make sure Nex only protects from mage and not from ranged. Which brings us to our next downside, which is the instance cost, which is pretty expensive, and it is 800k for every hour that you do here. If you can kill her consistently, you can make this back with no problem, but if you're learning with a partner that is also learning, you might have a hard time killing her, and though wasting the 800k in the instance. Finally, it can be pretty hard to find a partner that is willing to go with you. I recommend joining the PvMing FC Friends chat, where people from all levels go to find teams for different bosses, and you might just find someone who wants to go next with you. And finally, at number 1, we have Vindicta and Grovek. You might be surprised that I ranked this as a beginner boss, but it's really the lowest level boss left that actually brings something to the table. She's also the first boss in here that has a set attack rotation, so that's something good to learn early on. This means she does the same attacks in the same order, and once she's done with the rotation, it starts over. Learning and paying attention to the attack rotation can be really useful so you don't get caught off guard when a mechanic is coming up. Vindicta is also the first boss where you're going to be using a shield switch to use resonance. During phase 2, Vindicta has a filthy range attack that can hit really high. This attack can be the reason why lower level players struggle to keep their HP up at this boss. Switching to a shield, using resonance and then switching back to your weapon will allow you to heal from this attack instead of it damaging you. And this skill is extremely useful to learn, and you're going to be using it later on pretty much every boss. And since you now know that Vindicta has a set attack rotation, you can actually count the attacks and know exactly when it's coming. To top it all off, Vindicta can drop the Dragon Rider Lance and the Crest of Zaros, which are both over 40 mil. Getting either one of these can definitely give your bank a big boost. The downsides to Vindicta is that it can deal a lot of damage, especially in lower level gear, and it can be hard for beginners to stay at Vindicta for a longer period of time. It also requires kill count to make an instance, which can be a little bit annoying, but it's definitely not as bad as God Wars 1. And it also requires you to get reputation in order to get the highest drop rate. But don't worry, I got you covered and got a video on that as well, and you can go to it by clicking on the top right of your screen right now. Anyways guys, that's gonna be it for this video. I do hope you enjoyed, and I hope this video gets you going in PvM. If you did enjoy it, consider leaving a like on the video. It really does help it reach more people. And subscribe to the channel for more content like this in the future. You can also click on screen now to go to my channel, a video that YouTube will select for you, and my Road to Golden Reaper series. And I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!